Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Friday Morning at the Funhouse alongside my good friend, Mr. Martin Popoff. What's happening, Martin?
Yes, morning, sir. Morning, sir. Nothing much. It's nice weather up here in Toronto, although we've had tons and tons of rain. But that seems to be over, although it might be coming back. But yeah, on and off, it's definitely welcome. I hear it's been pretty bad down there too.
Well, I mean, the heat's kind of coming back again. A lot of people around here had lots of rain. We didn't here in the
Yeah,
Hudson
yeah.
Valley for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on here. It's like we've got like this umbrella over us that no rain here. We had a little bit, but not a lot. At least not in my town. Okay, because I've talked to other people I know who are in the surrounding towns. They got pummeled. We didn't get pummeled here, but whatever, it is what it is. But otherwise, the weather is pretty pleasant as we kind of start our move into fall, I guess, in a few weeks. So can't complain too much. Can't complain. So today we've got a really fun show for you. So Martin and I have been talking for a couple of weeks about doing something relating to like the hit songs of classic bands and how you get into conversations with people and you do like ranking songs and whatnot, and there's a lot of people who are of the mindset that the hit songs are the best songs. That's the reason why they're the hit songs, right? And but Martin and I have been talking. It's like, well, but there's lots of reasons for that, right? That's because record labels and record executives have chosen songs that they feel are good for mainstream radio. We're going back to radio days, which doesn't really happen much anymore. But a lot of the songs that we all know as the hits of bands were handpicked and sent off to radio stations to play and play and play. And I think the reason, at least we both kind of agree on this, the reason why some of these songs have been so popular and so long lasting is, yeah, they're good songs in most cases, but they've been fed to us through this kind of machine known as radio back in the day. You can say MTV was part of this. The songs that they made the videos on, and it was this constant rotation, this constant play where these songs are always in our subconscious, and over time we seem to they're the songs that everybody loves, that everybody wants to hear, and there's this kind of perception that those are the best songs. But are they really? So then you get two guys like us who don't really play along with that whole thing. It's like, well, yeah, some of these songs are really good, but how about those deep cuts? They're even better. But the more people we talk to, they're like, yeah, the deep cuts are cool, but the hits were the hits for a reason, because those are the best songs. Well, who says that? Who determines that? Don't know. So we've decided to do a show where we're picking five really, really popular, noteworthy, hard rock heavy bands in the history of rock and roll. And we've each picked our five favorite songs from each of them. We haven't discussed these. And we're going to kind of figure out if it's okay to not pick the hits. Are we just weirdos in this whole grand scheme of things that we just maybe don't gravitate towards the hits and we like the deeper cuts? Do we like some of the hits? I don't know. So this is an exercise to see, of these notable bands, are Martin and I in agreement on, maybe the type of song we pick, or do we pick the hit songs? Do we pick all deep cuts? Do we occasionally pick the hits? I don't know. We're going to see. So, Martin, you want to expand on that a little bit before we get started?
Yeah. I'll try not to like bring up every concept before we even get into these bands, and maybe save them for that. But yeah, just the idea. What's been happening lately is so I did over at Zunior.com, which has all my ebook stuff. I've been doing these short documents, these things on one album or whatever. But I started a while ago and did these top 20 Martin Popoff top 20 or Popoff top 20 or whatever it's called. And I started doing these lists of these songs and describing them. And then my good buddy Pat Prince over at Goldmine said, "Hey, let's run some of those." So they've been running some of those, I think, in the print mag, but definitely online. And lately, I've been getting into these flame wars. Remember that word, flame?
Yep.
These wars with people about the latest ones that have gone up. I had a Derringer go up. The Zeppelin got a lot of commentary. The Who is a really crazy list, and that's where we really got into these debates. And then a little less or so, but many of the concepts we're going to talk about came up with my Thin Lizzy one. And I'll just mention one example, to kick off this thing. I've got Boys Are Back in Town on my top 20, but it's down a little lower, right? I've got something like a song called Renegade I think I rated it my favorite Thin Lizzy song of all time. And then I've been talking with people. It's like, well, most of the things you love about The Boys Are Back in Town are also there on this Renegade song. It's just, it happened later. It happened when people didn't care about Thin Lizzy. It happened on an album that that a lot of people don't like by Thin Lizzy. It wasn't the big hit. It wasn't the big single. It wasn't shoved down our throats the way, the way you talk about. So it's from a different era. It's like 5 years later. So it's like, are we allowed to pick something like that? And why are we picking something like that? Is there a little bit of we're sick of it quality to it, right? And actually, one other Thin Lizzy thing I want to point out as well. So people were picking things like Borderline, Still in Love with You is a big famous song of theirs. There's certain things off of Nightlife, and it's like, they so how dare you put Still in Love with You so low down the list? And then I'm standing back and go, well, all the things you love about Thin Lizzy are not in these songs. All those great characteristics that you love about Cowboy Song and Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak to some extent, are not in these songs. So why are you telling me they should be high up the list? Because they're not even characteristic songs really, but they've been hits. They're ballads and all that stuff, and that gets into it as well. So yeah, we'll bring up some of this as we go along. Maybe I'll end up talking about the Who a little bit as well, but so yeah, without going into every concept, jumping into the first band, the first band I've got Judas Priest here. Yeah, I guess we don't have the order of this sorted out, right? So, sorry about that. You get to pick the second band first.
No problem.
So for Judas Priest, I've got for my 5 favorite songs, and I'm really making a strong point here, but I totally believe this in my heart. See, that's the other thing when I do these lists. It's like I'm not going to try to double guess what or second guess what people want to see there so they don't complain, kind of thing, right? That's part of it as well. But so for my 5 favorite Judas Priest songs, I've got Delivering the Goods, Burning Up, Rock Forever, Running Wild, Hellbent for Leather. Those all have a certain thing in common. They're actually all from this album, right? Which is a crazy thing, I know. But my point here is, number one, I have no problem calling it. I didn't have to force any of this onto this list. But I guess the main point I want to make here is I think sometimes with these lists of these songs, you start getting excited about championing one album. You love that one album. And it's not like you love that one album simply because it has a lot of songs you like on it, but there's starting to be some synergy there. You're starting to like the story of that album. You're starting to like the greatest picture of Rob Halford of all time, right there. And a great looking band shot period of these guys, or separate band shots, and an amazing album cover and all those sorts of things, right? So I think quite often you will gravitate towards a certain album. And yeah, this brings up another point about Thin Lizzy that I was arguing with people about. All of these big songs are off of their one gold album, Jailbreak. And I've never been able to shake the feeling that I find the production on that album a little high, screechy, tinny, bassless. And that's always bothered me. So production is a big thing too. So for me, with those songs from Jailbreak that we're all supposed to have way up our list, and I've got most of them on my list, there's kind of a ceiling of 8 out of 10 on them because of that, because I'm a little ticked off about the production. And then having said that, I realized that that's kind of like an old, obsolete comment, because these records get remastered and remixed over time. You're listening to them on different stereos, and now when I play Jailbreak, frankly, it's usually on Spotify on my best sounding stereo, which is the one in my computer with a little subwoofer, $99 tweeters, mid-range pointed right at my head. It literally sounds better than my stereo. So when I listen to Jailbreak on that, there's enough bass. So it's kind of stupid, saying all this stuff, saying, oh, I remember my original vinyl, this is what it sounded like, kind of thing. So there you go. My Judas Priest example, the theme is you get fixated and championing a certain album, and all of a sudden just everything about the mood of that record makes those songs just feel like they have to be a group, they have to be a gang walking down the middle of the street, and that's why I've got 5 off of that record as my 5 favorite Priest songs.
You know, I have an issue with people who are of the opinion that you're supposed to like X, Y, and Z. Like, why? And it's always about music, because, like, you know, you're allowed to have your favorite brand of peanut butter. You're allowed to have your favorite pizzeria, right? Favorite kind of pizza. You know, some people like sausage, mushroom, plain, pepperoni, whatever. You're allowed to have your favorite airline that you like to fly. You're allowed to have your favorite, you know, type of movie, whatever. But when it comes to music, everybody always seems to feel that the way that they feel about their favorite songs and albums and bands is the way everybody should. And it's like, why is that? I wonder, what is it about music that makes people go like off the rails like this? I never understood that. So, all right. So back to Priest and the ranking. So you know, 2+ years ago, I did this whole series of shows here on the channel called Top 10 Songs. I think Martin's even done a few with me. And, you know, when we decided we were going to do this episode today, I'm like, all right, do I go and rewatch all of those to basically mimic what were my favorite songs 2 years ago from all these bands? And I decided not to do that at all. I said, I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to think really hard about each one of these 5 bands, and just whatever comes to me today or, you know, this week, that's what I'm going to pick. And I'm not going to go by, because, you know, you have your favorites change all the time. I found it's just the way it is with your favorite bands, especially when you love so much of their material. So when it came to Priest, I was like, all right, kind of like Martin, right? Because everybody knows my favorite Priest album is Stay in Class. And I'm like, all right, so I could probably fairly easily pick a bulk of the songs from that album. But then I started to look at some of the other of my favorite Priest albums, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to mix it up a little bit, because I think where I'm at today, maybe a little bit different from a couple of years ago. I don't know. I think after we're done with doing this episode, I'm going to go and rewatch all this and see how I kind of measure it up. So my number 5 is going to be Bloodstone from Screaming for Vengeance. Number 4 is going to be Starbreaker from Sin After Sin. Number 3, also from Sin After Sin. We got 2 from Sin After Sin today. Dissonant Aggressor. Number 2 is Victim of Changes. And the number 1 spot is going to be Saints in Hell from Stay in Class.
Wow. Okay.
So, you know, again, any trends here? Well, obviously 4 of the 5 are from that classic period that I know you and I hold so dear, and only 1 from any 80s album. And I almost didn't include Bloodstone, but I really love that song a lot. And, you know, I almost went Beyond the Realms of Death. So yeah, any trends? No, you know, my guess is when I go back and watch my top 10 song show is that probably 3 of the 5 are going to be the same, but I don't know. I'm not, because I don't remember what I did 2 years ago. So, but yeah, so there's mine.
Yeah, and for the record, you know, we should probably mention with each of these bands, what are the hits? So you've got Another Thing Coming, correct, which is like a proto early dumb lunkhead hair metal song, right? It's pretty dull, you know. It's got that big pounding 4/4 beat to it. We've got Living After Midnight, which shocked the heck out of me and my buddies when we first heard it, with those Louie Louie chords to open it up, right? Like crazy. Like, this is not the Priest we know. You know, the verse is fairly heavy on it. We've got Breaking the Law, which a lot of people, it's almost like my Rainbow Down to Earth thing, where I go, that's not a poppy album. People call that a poppy song. I don't find that a poppy song. I never did. It was fairly heavy. But again, you know, why are these hits? They're chosen. You know, You Got Another Thing Coming was like, we need to have a hit single off this album. So that's a little bit of that. Well, we'll talk about a little later, that Paranoid thing. But Turbo Lover. You know, there aren't a lot of hits, and then you get into the classics, which of course Victim of Changes and Tyrant. So you get these big songs that are like people's hits. These are the songs that are the hits of the band, but they weren't pushed by the machine. They just got there because they're just known to be good quality, and the smart fans themselves have voted them hits.
Yeah, those are like the non-radio songs, but the concert staples that, you know, the fans love. And so so I only have 1 of those. So, and I think you had, did you have Hellbent for Leather in yours?
Yeah. But, you know, I'm picking also an album that a lot of people don't pick as their favorite album. It totally is mine. But so again, I guess what we're seeing with these hits, you know, and also, so we'll bring up a few of these things. The radio experience is, so number one, it's the industry pushing it at you. When the industry pushes it at you, it causes familiarity. Familiarity causes you to like it more, causes you to play it more, causes to make it more familiar. Radio experience sometimes is a communal experience, so people are listening to things together, and now music more so is a lonely experience. Literally, when you put buds in your ear, you're listening to that alone. Like, no one can literally hear what you're listening to. So yeah, radio's kind of interesting, and radio's like, so the other thing about radio, which is kind of neat, is when you hear a song on the radio, there's this extra magic to it because it's a communal experience, and that tens of thousands of people around you are listening to that at the same time, and that's really cool, right?
Yeah,
you're going, wow, this is cool. They're playing this, and it's going out to my city, right? Everybody's hearing it at the same time, and that's great. So it's got this it's got that massive big party feel to it. It's got the DJ picked it. He wanted to play it ostensibly, right? Now there's the whole corporate thing, but it's anthemic. The other reasons things become hits or are picked to be pushed as hits is catchy choruses and hooks, and catchy also can mean just a nice little tagline like "Living After Midnight" or "You've Got Another Thing Coming," which is sort of like a Meatloaf title, right? One of those titles with lots and lots and lots of small, boring words in it, right? But yeah, so putting everything we like about Priest against the hits, the hits are, I guess another way to put it is they're sort of like the what is that, starter drug, feeder drug? What's that term that they use for pot leads to heroin kind of thing, right?
Oh, the gateway.
Gateway, yeah, gateway to Priest, right? So it's supposed to be the easy, slight, not too demanding or commanding entryway, gateway to Priest, and so that's the reason they're chosen as.
So for the record, so let's go back in time. So when Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight, You Got Another Thing Coming, and Turbo Lover, I guess we'll throw in as the 4 hits from this band. Were you into them back in the day? Or were you maybe, because I know lots of people that those were always their favorite Priest songs. Always.
Yeah.
They never were for me. I was never a huge fan of any of those songs. And I will say, like, when I go to see Priest live today, like, now, I don't want to hear 3 of those 4. I don't. Funny enough, probably the song I used to like the least out of all of them was Turbo Lover. That's the one I don't mind hearing live when they play now. I actually get into that when they play it live, but the other 3, I'm like, oh God, is it time to go? Or, and again, I'm sick of them. Yes, but I was never really that into them to begin with.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah. Turbo Lover's my favorite or second favorite from that album. Living After Midnight, I remember now, I believe was an advanced single. So we were hearing that before the album. And if I'm not correct on that, I'm certainly positive that Heading Out to the Highway from Point of Entry was an advanced single. I remember hearing that to start out with. That's a whole another thing, maybe another show, the advanced singles and what they did, and did they line up with the album, and did they entice you in and you were disappointed? In most cases, you were disappointed by the album after the advanced single. The advanced single was, you think of Rock You Like a Hurricane. I remember distinctly one of the really interesting, well put together songs from that album, and the rest of it was not as creative as that song, right? But no, and going back to British Steel, no, I would say those 2 songs were at the lower end. Grinder and Metal Gods, probably the 2 favorites off of that. Interestingly, not the 2 fast ones, but just the kind of the 2 heaviest and best and catchiest like hit singles. Those sound like metal hit singles, those 2.
Yep.
They're very, very catchy, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Whereas, Breaking the Law, Breaking the Laws it's probably a little bit of the lyric and the story in it and stuff like that as well. But yeah. Anyways, I'm rambling.
All right. Let's go to Sabbath next, Martin.
Okay.
So what do you got?
Oh, my turn? Okay. So here's Sabbath. I mean, I've just brought out one record per, but again, favorite Sabbath album. And for Sabbath, boy, I've got about 10 here, but I'll just name the top 5. Again, it's a little bit like this trend, and I won't go on about the trend, but Megalomania, The Thrill of It All, The Writ, Lord of this World, Into the Void. Let's just say those for now. So again, the trend, it's from probably my two favorite Sabbath albums, Sabotage and Master of Reality. But here I'll mention a new trend, the cheating of picking long songs. Loving the long songs because you love this band. So why wouldn't your favorite song be the one that has 3 songs inside of it, right? It's like, hey, bonus, I cheated, right? So Megalomania's got these approximately 3, maybe it's 4 parts, but I think it's got at least 3 completely distinct parts. Big long song. Thrill of It All has different parts in it. I love the production. So again, production's a big thing for me, like I talked about from Thin Lizzy. And you get back to Master of Reality is a little bit of this direct war between the hits and the non-hits. So I feel like I've heard Sweetleaf and Children of the Grave way too many times. Would Sweetleaf be one of my favorites from that album? Probably not. But Children of the Grave, I think I'm cheating and saying, I am putting it below. The 3 that are lesser played, which is Lord of this World, Into the Void, and After Forever. Those are my 3 favorites from it. So there's a little bit of like, that guy who says, well, your hits should be up there. You should never, ever, ever be discounting the hits because you're sick of them. That's a valid argument. It's a valid debate to have. If you're going to be really pure about this, you're supposed to remove that from the equation, right? When you pick these songs. But so there you go. I guess the last general umbrella theme I'll say about this is, it's kind of obvious, but when you're a deep fan, all the things you love about that band, you would like to hear those in your favorite songs. And often in the hits, they leave out some of the scarier things.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. All right. So right off the bat, everybody probably knows my favorite Sabbath album is Volume 4. So, Martin and I are very vocal about our favorite Sabbath albums, and as most people are who are Sabbath fans. So, again, we're going to see some similar things here. So number 5 for me is Mob Rules from the album of the same name. Number 4, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath from the album of the same name. Number 3 is Heaven and Hell from the album of the same name. And number 2 and number 1, both from Volume 4, Under the Sun and Snowblind. So, and I really like your kind of little discussion there about Master of Reality, which is my second favorite Sabbath album, and ironically, no songs in my top 5. However, if we were to go top 10 here, we would likely have Into the Void and After Forever, and possibly Children of the Grave, and maybe more. Now, as far as the hits go, so neither one of us mentioned Iron Man, Paranoid, or War Pigs. Now, for me, out of the 3 of those, I think the only one, and probably would be in my top 10, is War Pigs, because it's a hit. I still really like War Pigs. It's my favorite song from that album, probably. I've never been a big fan of Paranoid at all, so there's never that whole sick of thing. Iron Man, probably sick of at this point, but I still do like Iron Man, but I don't need to hear it all that often. And as far as changes and all that kind of stuff, I never really had any use for that song at all. But a lot of, I could have, from this album, I could have gone even more, because I think Supernaut just missed my top 5. I almost put Supernaut in here. And, Tomorrow's Dream is terrific, and Wheels of Confusion I love as well. So I could have easily, if I really wanted to, done most of my top 5 from my favorite album, Volume 4. But I feel so strongly, you mentioned the longer songs, Heaven and Hell, and I love the live versions. I love seeing Heaven and Hell live. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is kind of long. So yeah, interesting. And I can't wait to see what I picked were my top 10 2 years ago when I did this.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. So you had some title tracks in there. I think you had 3 title tracks.
3, yep, 3 in a row.
So is that Black Sabbath quietly picking their own hit? Is the title track the song they're most proud of from the record, right?
Yeah, that could be.
So that's kind of interesting. So here they are saying, this is the song we feel in our heart of hearts creatively as a band is our hit. The label may have other ideas and they may push something else. But it's like, and so the band is quietly signaling to you always, really, when they name a song the title track, they're quietly signaling to you, pay attention to this song. We really like it.
But what's interesting is in the case of Paranoid, right? So that album was supposed to be called War Pigs, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the original
Yeah.
title of the album. And Paranoid, the song, was the last thing they recorded because they had extra room. They needed one more song to fill up the album. So they just went and threw that together. And ironically, that has turned to be their most popular song of all time, and really not even all that representative of what Black Sabbath is all about when you really listen to that song. So go figure.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So Paranoid is this weird jinxy sort of picking of a title track. And I'll tell you, this is the crazy thing. So when I did those big top 500 heavy metal songs of all times, and I took that massive poll, the winner in the book, in the last version that was printed, I mean, and then I eventually made a 70s and an 80s version. I haven't done a 90s, but in the 70s book, I think still, but definitely in the original big thick book that came out through a big publisher, Paranoid won the greatest heavy metal song of all time by anybody. So there's a huge argument about our whole thing about the hits, like the power of the hit, right? How big it, and also why is it a hit? It's immediate, it's short, it's really easy to understand, it's fast paced. So all of these things, and like you say, it's not particularly Sabbath-like in too many ways. So it's a gateway to Sabbath kind of thing.
But, crazy.
Yeah, I
that
like
was
that.
number one. Wow, that's shocking. Yeah. I mean, maybe it shouldn't be shocking. I don't know. Yeah, it's so weird. I not to get off track here, but like there's nothing that like makes me crazy. Like you go to see a band, and it's happened so many times. You go to see a band like Sabbath in concert, right? You pull up to the venue, maybe they're doing an outdoor show, everybody's tailgating or whatever it is. And you're walking through the parking lot and people are playing Iron Man and Paranoid and War Pigs. And I'm like, but you're going to hear them play that in like an hour. Why are you listening to that now? It's just like, isn't it? You would think they'd be anxious to hear them play it. So, but to me, it's like, but if I just play it in the parking lot, I don't want to hear him play it in an hour. I want to hear him play something different. So why not listen to stuff that you're not going to hear, because you're going to get all those familiar songs when you go see them. I don't understand that at all. But based on what you just said, obviously people's perception and love for a song like Paranoid is tremendous, regardless of the fact that I never was a fan.
Yeah, the rest of my list I had here on the cheat list here included, After Forever, Sabracadabra, Dirty Women, Gypsy, and Die Young. So, again, there's that thing where, I get a lot of heck for picking anything from Technical Ecstasy or Never Say Die, or Mob Rules somewhat to some extent as well. But again, if you're such a super deep fan of a band, that I'm sick of so many things comes into it, right?
Yeah. I had Hole in the Sky in my honorable mention.
Yeah, that was close for me as well. Okay, so Zeppelin next. You want to do Zeppelin?
Sounds good.
Okay. So here's Zeppelin 3. I picked this for a reason. I did a Zeppelin list and got a lot of pushback from that as well. And this is a band where really that whole pollution of am I sick of it and should you include that into it comes into it in a big way, because they have so many massive songs. Yep. But I picked Zeppelin 3 because always on my list of favorite songs is Celebration Day and Friends. Friends is like this cool, haunting, weird acoustic, reminds me of Jimmy Page and Kenneth Anger, the intro to In the Evening, that whole kind of really spooky version, dark version of acoustic. And Celebration Day, I think, has one of his coolest, funkiest, most complicated, less obvious sort of riffs to it. I love the vocal melody, how it has nothing to do with the song. It's just a complicated, short song. So I always have those on there. In My Time of Dying, I have on there for the cheat factor. It's a big, long song. It's heavy. It's got all these different parts. It's like, why would, as a huge Zeppelin fan, why wouldn't I pick a song that cheats? It's a little bit like the genie in the bottle. You got 3 wishes, and one of your wishes is I want 10 more wishes, right? Like that. So I've got that's 3. So let's see, Carousel Alhambra, and The Rover. So I put a good heavy one from my favorite Led Zeppelin album, Physical Graffiti, and then Carousel Alhambra again. So here we have The long song factor, um, it's a happy, it makes me happy, so it does that thing that hits are supposed to do. And I also love the production of that album. It's a weird, kind of dirty, but kind of also high fidelity production on that record. But well, yeah, I'd like to hear yours, but then also, you bring up what the hits are and how that fits into it, I suppose.
Sure. Okay. All right. So let me get my picks out first. So I have one quasi hit in my list, and that is Black Dog from the fourth album. From there, that's everything's, Celebration Day, number 4. I agree with it. Terrific song. Could have even ranked it higher. I absolutely love Celebration Day, and Friends is great as well. Achilles' Last Stand, number 3. Big, epic, heavy. From the second album, Bring It On Home. Again, kind of epic, more of a bluesy hard rocker, but I absolutely love it. And let's pick the heaviest song they ever did, The Rover from Physical Graffiti, also my favorite Zeppelin's album of all time. So none of us picked rock and roll. Neither of us picked Stairway to Heaven. Neither of us picked Whole Lot of Love. Neither of us picked Immigrant Song, which is in my honorable mentions. What else?
Dazed and Confused, Communication Breakdown.
Yep, none of that.
Yeah, No Quarter.
No Quarter, The Ocean.
Your Maker. Yeah.
Song Remains the Same. Which Song Remains the Same and No Quarter are both in my honorable mentions because I do love those a lot, as is Immigrant Song. I had Since I've Been Loving You in my honorable mentions. Trampled Underfoot.
In the Evening, I don't know if you mentioned these, but In the Evening, All My Love, Hot Dog, those are kind of hits.
Yeah, especially All My Love. Yeah, absolutely. So and again, why? I like Stairway to Heaven quite a bit. I always have. I don't know if I hold it in as high regard as so many other people do. It's a great song, sure. I'm not really sick of it. I don't mind hearing Stairway. I don't. Rock and roll, I never need to hear again. A, I was never a big fan of it. And B, to me, rock and roll is even more played out than Stairway to Heaven is. I think because it's a shorter song. Radio plays it more. I think radio plays Stairway to Heaven a lot, but they save it for like the right moments. But rock and roll is played all the time. Plus, if you've seen it on commercials, and it's just like, oh, enough already. I was never a big fan of it, but yeah, I mean, some of the I like Kashmir. We didn't even bring up Kashmir. I mean, I like Kashmir. To me, Kashmir though is a really great epic song. I would have liked Kashmir a little shorter. I think that's one of those long songs that for me maybe overstays by like 2 or 3 minutes just a little bit because I think the song itself is pure genius. But I just after a while I'm kind of like, oh, all right, it's wearing on me just a little bit. But I love a lot of things about Kashmir. So other than Black Dog, that's really the only kind of hit in our list there.
Yeah, I agree with you. Black Dog is a great song, and it would be high on my list as well. But yeah, whole lot of love is just annoying to me now. And Stairway to Heaven, I've always found all of those parts boring, and when you put them all together, it's still boring to me. Kashmir, I totally agree with you. That would have been up there. A funny thing here is you called Rover the heaviest song they ever did, and I said I picked a heavy one off of Physical Graffiti, and then, but when you think of that song, it just goes ding 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 ding, and then the chorus is da, 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 da. It's Zeppelin are tricksters, man. It's we think that song's heavy, and I wonder how heavy it really is, right? And there are the heavy songs too. Wonton Song.
The Wonton Song, I was just gonna say, might be a little heavier, yeah. And even like Immigrant Song is pretty heavy, I guess, right? But again, listen to some of these songs that we think are heavy by Zeppelin. Are they really all that heavy? I don't know. I think his guitar tone sometimes, the attitude, the arrangement makes it seem a little heavier than it is.
Yeah, and also I think we think that song is heavy because of the sort of the steady, sober propulsion of the bass and the drums, right?
Yeah,
it's like kind of framed. The frame way back in the background is heavy metal, but everything on top of that frame is not that particularly heavy. It's a power trio. It's not that particularly layered up with anything, right? It's funny, yeah. But yeah, so definitely this is one that I guess every deep Zeppelin fan has their picks, but I think this is a band where people are so blinded by the legend of some of these massive songs that they just automatically, like sheep, send the song to the top of the list, right? and therein starts the debate. There starts the flame wars about these songs. It's like, how dare you leave that off the list? See, that's the other thing that happens. How dare you leave these songs off the list? And it's like, well, which ones are you going to knock off the list that are there? So, well, they all belong, right? Then you get those short Facebook comments. There is no bad Led Zeppelin songs.
Right.
We're dealing with this. Jamie and I just did a Contrarians on Build the Worst Van Halen album of the David Lee Roth era, right? And we're getting that because Van Halen fans are very militant, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of people saying there are no bad Van Halen songs with David Lee Roth, but I can make a box set out of Sammy Hagar songs. And when you build, because Jamie and I did that episode too, which will go up. But yeah, it's really, I think with Zeppelin, it's just a massive. And then you get into the debate between, what kind of Zeppelin do you like? Do you like the bluesy original traditional Zeppelin, or do you like when they do something a little more complicated and proggier and heavy metal or whatever?
Or the folky stuff, right? Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Next, how about UFO?
Sounds
Talk
good.
about a little UFO.
Yep.
So this is a bad one for me, and when I say bad one, it's like my Who list, and where you have a list that people accuse you of being a contrarian. Because we have that show called The Contrarians. That's part of the problem. I get called a contrarian, but part of being called a contrarian means, oh, you're just doing it to get attention. It's not really your true list, right? So that's the part I got to push back on. It's just like, if I'm a contrarian on a band, is because that is my list, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm not a contrarian on the band, and I think Aerosmith Rocks is the greatest Aerosmith album, boo-hoo, that's not the contrarian choice, and that's my choice. So but UFO, yeah, I guess I'm kind of contrarian on this. And I guess for my top 5 today, I'm going to go with No Place to Run from that album. 2 that nobody even remembers what they sound like from that album. They aren't even heavy. This Fire Burns Tonight and Gone in the Night from that album. I'll go with Can You Roll Her, my favorite Scorpions song from the Schenker era. I think that song totally sounds like it should have been on Virgin Killer. And I'll go with Making Moves from Wild Willing, I think it is, right? Hang on. Yeah, Wild Willing, I'm pretty sure. And not Mechanics. Hang on. Mechanics. Anyways, those 3, I love those 3 Paul Chapman albums, the first ones. So I've got 4 Paul Chapmans in there, and only 1 from the Schenker era. And again, I guess with Schenker, this is one where there's, I'm massively out of step with basically everybody on this, but I just love those songs. They sound more cheerful. They make me happy. I like the production. Again, this is a production theme one, because I find all of those Ron Nevison productions, every single one of them, and what's his name from 10 Years After?
Churchill. Oh, the Leo Lyons. Yeah.
So I find the early ones just a little mid-rangey and boxy. So that would be your Phenomenon. Forget the first ones, but Phenomenon and Force It. I think No Heavy Petting sounds amazing in every way. There's no problem with that one. But I also think Lights Out and Obsession both sound, Lights Out's pretty good, but Obsession definitely sounds like Jailbreak to me. It definitely has that problem to it for me. So again, I got a ceiling going on these Schenker era songs. And again, I like the whole idea of the Schenker band more. There's just something more hallowed and creative. It's just like Scorpions going from Uli to Matthias. It's exactly the same thing, where my heart's telling me I really do actually like more of those Matthias songs. They're just more cheery and party action kind of feel to them. It just feels more like a big communal radio experience. So here I am, almost kind of picking the songs that could have, should have been hits that sound like more radio songs versus the more academic, thoughtful Teutonic songs from the Schenker era. So yeah, there's my UFO rant.
All right, so I'm going to go completely opposite of you on this. So for me, those hallowed albums that's in my DNA. I like the kind of Teutonicness of those 70s UFO records, and same thing with the Scorpions. As a matter of fact, if we decide to do a part 2 of this at some point down the road, we can get into that. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure that my top 5 here is identical to what I did on my top 10 song show a couple of years ago. Pretty sure. My number 5 is Love to Love from Lights Out. My number 4 is Shoot Shoot from Force It. My number 3 is the title track to Lights Out. My number 2 is Pack It Up and Go from Obsession. And my number 1, fairly predictable, but it's always been my favorite UFO song, Rock Bottom from Phenomenon. Now, it's funny because I've spoken to lots of people who have issues with some of the production of these albums. I never minded them, to be honest with you. To me, the songs always ruled here, and that's what I kind of looked at a little bit more. So as far as like hits go, now, UFO didn't have a lot of hits, but this is like the Thin Lizzy thing all over again. Neither one of us picked Dr. Doctor, which kind of like The Boys Were Back in Town, the one real radio hit from Thin Lizzy. UFO only really ever had Dr. Doctor. And even that wasn't really that big of a radio hit. That's more like the band's anthem. I've never been a fan of Dr. Doctor, ever. And UFO has so many great songs, whether it's the Schenker era or, the following eras. If I were to do like today, rank my top 20 UFO songs, I don't even know if Dr. Doctor would be on it. I really don't care for the song. I never did. So that wasn't even a consideration for me. But then again, you have some of these classic UFO tracks. Go to the Strangers in the Night live album, right? They're all there. And I have, I've got I've got 4 of them. Pack It Up and Go is really the only outlier, but Pack It Up and Go is on the deluxe Strangers in the Night. So I guess, all of my picks are considered classic UFO tracks, but not necessarily hits, I guess, or most of them anyway. So
yeah, interesting. So the top 3 songs from UFO, 2 of them are very heavy and complex and really cool, Lights Out and Rock Bottom, and everybody loves them, and they're actually 2 of their biggest songs. So there you've got that thing again where the fans have voted over time and realized that these are their epics. This is their Stargazer and Light in the Black kind of thing, right? These are their big creative statements. And then Dr. Doctor has got a little bit of that paranoid taint to it, and even a little bit of Lagrange kind of problem to it. And I think of Lagrange when I think of that song because I've often joked around. I think I did a history in 5 songs on this about shuffles, where I've got a ceiling on shuffles, right? Like shuffles are rarely do they get above 7 out of 10, right? Whether that's Uriah Heep or whatever. And my favorite bands for shuffles are Black Sabbath and probably Cathedral. Probably Cathedral does doomy Black Sabbath shuffles even better than Sabbath does.
Yeah, you're probably right.
yeah. But Dr. Doctor is a little annoying and sing-songy and all that stuff. And so that's the only hit of theirs that sort of makes sense. As a Shoot kind of makes sense as a hit as well too. It's dialed back a little from the wall of sound that is Rock Bottom and Lights Out, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. And I had in my honorables here Queen of the Deep from the Phenomenon album, which I absolutely love. No one ever talks about that song. I had Let It Roll, Natural Thing, On With the Action, which is a kind of cool, deep, heavy cut that people don't talk about. You Don't Fool Me, and one more from The Rodeo, which are 2 deep cuts from the Obsession album, which is my favorite UFO album. And I love those songs. I think they're nice and heavy, kind of bluesy and, dirgy and whatnot. So,
yeah. I had Lights Out, and then I had 2 more Paul Chapman's, Dreaming and Long Gone.
Yeah, Long Gone is great.
Long Gone, super heavy one, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Right,
Okay.
we got Heap left.
Yeah, Heap. Okay, so here's Heap head first, pulled out for no reason whatsoever. I just kind of like that record. So with Heap, I would say my favorite Heap songs are Shadows of Grief, Bird of Prey, Tears in My Eyes, Suicidal Man, and Too Scared to Run. So we've got 1 from Abominog, and the rest are, well, actually Suicidal Man is a little bit from the Twilight years, but the first 3 are from the classic era. And oddly enough, none of these are from the 2 biggest albums. But again, I look at this list and I go epic, proggy, heavy, complicated, lots of parts. They're all really heavy. Too Scared to Run's probably the heaviest song on Abominog. It's got a little bit of that Teutonic feel to it. I think it's got a little bit of that bleak, mainland European sort of metal to it. Suicidal Man is just awesome, just super, super heavy and percussive. So, here again, these are not particularly the big anthems from this band. What are heaps hits? I mean, Gypsy would be high up my list, and that's a hit. That actually is an interesting song. It fits, and I might do a podcast episode about this. But I think of songs that you dare not cover, because the song itself is not particularly crazy complicated. There's not a lot to sink your teeth into as a cover band. And then coupled with that, the original is so incredibly performed and produced that you will never do as good. I feel like we've talked about this before, but it'll never be as good as the original, right? And then there's songs right on the flip side.
That wall of Hammond organ and guitar on Gypsy is just unmatched. Yeah.
And that singer and the production, everything about it, the drumming. And then there's songs on the other side where you go, wow, there's a great song hidden in that crappy performance and production somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And boy, someone could really bring that song to life. So
no wonder that a lot of bands don't cover Uriah Heep. You ever? I mean, that's probably it when you think about it.
Yeah, it's true. The productions are amazing. The performances, it's got that huge, crazy, complicated alloy between organ and guitar, and usually the drumming is interesting. Usually they also do that cool, or often they do that cool kind of overdriven thing with the guitar, and sometimes like the lashing out of the toms and the drums that you hear with Sweet and Queen, right? Where it sounds like someone's just turning up the knobs at inopportune times, and you're just like kind of surprised by this flash of volume that comes out of it, right?
Yep.
But so that's a bit of a weird, again, I suppose to go back to the previous discussion, I'm leaving out some songs on here that are shuffles, right? Heap is known for their shuffles, and they've got some shuffles that have become hits, like Easy Livin' and Love Machine, I think, are both shuffles.
Yeah.
Right. And Love Machine's pretty darn heavy, right? Well, actually, they're both pretty darn heavy.
Yeah, they're both pretty heavy.
But I'm kind of leaving them off. So I don't know. So again, I don't know if I did a top 20 and Pat ran it at Goldmine and I put it at Facebook, how much would people complain? I mean, I suppose I'd have a few of the hits on there, but not really. It would be these deep, heavy, proggy, complex songs, and not the long, boring ones. Not A Circle of Hands or July Morning. I'm not going to have those on my list, right? I just never got into them. I never went and explored the jungles of those songs in a big way and made them my song, right? Kind of thing. So, anyways, there you go.
So my number 5 is Free and Easy from Innocent Victim, which is kind of like a heavy metal boogie for them. But I love it. I love the guitar tone on that song and the riff. I think it's great. And John Lawton sings great on that. It's the only John
The beginning's like Bread Fan on that, isn't it? It's just
well,
like
yeah,
the guitar,
a little bit.
just whoa.
Yeah, it's so heavy. You're like, holy crap, is this Heap? Yeah, oh yeah. And then you got, there's no keys on that song. There's no Hammond organ. Then you got Ken Hensley playing slide guitar on that, the solos, which is kind of cool. Rainbow Demon from Demons and Wizards. I love the big doomy Heap stuff. Really love it. Shadows of Grief. Look at Yourself. We'll come back to Look at Yourself for the title track, which I absolutely love. And then number 1 is Gypsy from Very Heavy, Very Humble. And lots of other favorites from this band. I also had Too Scared to Run. A lot of other songs. But Bird of Prey is terrific. I love the title track to Salisbury, but yet I'm not a huge July Morning fan. I like it. I'm not a huge fan. I also don't think Easy Living is a great song. Again, it's kind of like the Dr. Doctor thing. Here you have these bands that were not big hit bands, but sold lots of records. And they all have this one song that's deemed their most popular song. I like Easy Living enough, but it's not a top 10 song for me from them at all. But a great band, and I could have easily picked some stuff from their most recent albums, which I think are all terrific. I could have picked a couple more from Abominog as well. I love Abominog. I even like the mellow stuff on that album. So
yeah,
a lot of good tracks for this band.
I like that you bring up Easy Living, because that, and then comparing it to Dr. Doctor, I think something else about songs that are picked as hit singles, and maybe we've touched on this, but that idea of a sing-songy kind of irritating vocal melody that recurs, that maybe goes with the riff, but maybe it's a little simplistic, and all those things I just said equate hooky in a way too, right?
Yeah.
They're hooky, but do you really want hookiness in such an overt way, and you want it over and over again, familiarity, blah blah blah, and eventually you start regretting. Easy living, dun, 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 been forgiven.
And the whole
You know,
arrangement is very like one note. You know, it's kind of like Paranoid. It's kind of like Doctor Doctor. It's just this, 3.5 minute song that doesn't really deviate much. That's
yeah,
the whole song, right? And to me, the most interesting thing about that song is Byron's vocal. That's a fine song for what it is, but I never gravitated towards it as like the greatest Heap song ever, which they can't not play it live, right? Everybody's like waiting to hear that song. It's like it's okay. I like it enough, but another song too, which was a kind of a hit for them, is Lady in Black. Which Lady in Black, I like seeing them play live because it's like it gets the whole audience into it. Everybody sings, but like I never feel the need to listen to Lady in Black like at the gym or on a walk or at home. It's like it's okay, but people love that song.
yeah, yeah. And Stealing, a big plodding shuffle, right, for them, right,
Yeah,
and the big ooh oohs and all that, right.
yeah,
I know I mentioned this before, but I always thought it was interesting. Randy Bachman told me once that to write a hit song, you've got to have something instantly recognizable in the first 4 seconds. And that's kind of interesting about a lot of these hits we've talked about, how they just get right to the point and they get going, and that's a hit thing too, right? It's like people's attention spans. You'll get more people if you get to the point quicker. All the people with the short attention span are not going to like Shadows of Grief or anything
right.
that takes a long time to get going, sort of thing, right?
But that brings up an interesting point, because then you have a song like Stairway to Heaven from Zeppelin, which kind of takes a while to get into it, right? But yet people
Yeah.
love it anyway. So I see both aspects there.
Yeah. And there you get mellowness bringing people in, right? The
Right.
extreme more than words situation, right? Where hits are often mellow songs. We almost kind of didn't even really go there, but yeah. So yeah, again, it's the weird thing here is that if you're a deep fan, I guess kind of a point that I made with the Thin Lizzy one is, if you're a deep fan, all the things you love about that band that you love the hit for, you can just simply go find them in other songs and enjoy them there, right?
Yes, 100%. That is probably the most profound thing we could say on the show today. Yeah, because I know a lot of people personally who refuse to even bother with the deep cuts. They're like, I only want to hear the hits because those are the ones I know. But if you are a true fan of a band, you can go find those gems in the catalog that'll make you feel as good, if not better, than those hit radio songs. That's just the way it is, right? So that's why I think that, when you have these people who say, the best songs are always the hits, well, why is that? Why do you feel that? Is that because someone told you that they are, or is that really what you feel? Do how much do you know the whole catalog, and how much have you listened to the whole catalog? Where, have you made that distinction? Do you have that opinion based on your own experience, or are you just kind of saying that because that's what everybody tells you to? Well, the greatest hits collection, the compilations, they put the best songs on there, so that's what we should believe are the best songs.
Yeah.
I think that's a load of crap.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You think it's a little bit of like, how comfortable are you in your own skin about this band? So like, do you feel like you don't have the confidence to be able to choose the songs, or even indeed, I mean, do you not have the confidence to want to be alone, in a dark closet with this song, and you're the only one with this song, or do you need that communal experience to say, hey, I'm with everybody else on this, and that's I'm in a big room with this song, rather than a small room, just myself and one or two other complete music nerds, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, and I've told this story a million times, but it's like the whole Blue Oyster Cult story. You go to see Blue Oyster Cult, and 90% of the audience goes there basically to hear one song.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, Martin, you and I have talked about Blue Oyster Cult so many times. This is a band with a really rich discography with some great deep tracks, one of the best deep track bands of all time. It's okay to like and want to hear and enjoy other songs besides Don't Fear the Reaper. It really is. It drives me crazy when I go see Blue Oyster Cult live and they have a packed house, all people that, you know, of our age or older who have enjoyed Blue Oyster Cult throughout their entire lives. And you sit and you watch everybody and they play, you know, they do a really good job of playing some deep cuts. And you look around and people are acting like it's the first time they've ever heard these songs. And they're kind of like, I don't know what this is. And they don't come to life until the end of the show when they play Don't Fear the Reaper. And then they go berserk. And it's like, so basically you pay, you know, whatever you paid for your ticket to hear the one song, which you probably hear all the time anyway. It's like, why would you, and you know, why would you not want to go and investigate and get to know some of these other great songs? It's like, why do you feel that there's only one good song by this band? And that's really the only one I came to hear.
Yeah, I got a point to make about Don't Fear the Reaper. So and this came up in my Who discussion. I'll try to draw that parallel, but Don't Fear the Reaper, it's a little bit like if you love Don't Fear the Reaper and it's your favorite Blue Oyster Cult song, you don't really like Blue Oyster Cult. And now the point about that is that's the only song of theirs that sounds like that. That's the song where everybody says that's their Birdsey song, right? And it's like they say that because they don't have any other Birdsey songs, right? So the funny thing about the rhythm in the guitar, only the lyric of that song sounds like a Blue Oyster Cult song, but really nothing else about it. So I got accused of this with my Who list, because my Who list, I eventually started writing back saying, I like my Who poppy, late, and preferably with Pete singing. Like that was my little quip that I would answer back to say why my list is so weird, right? Why it had so much It's Hard and Face Dances on it. And people eventually wrote back and said, if that's your list, you don't really like the Who. And I started thinking about that and going, fair game, you know, because basically if my list has a trend to it, my 20 has a trend of like a bunch of songs with Kenny drumming and Pete singing, and they're from two not very liked Who albums, right? It's like, maybe I'm not a Who fan. Maybe I don't like the Who properly because I didn't pick way up my list Keith Moon drumming songs and you know, Roger Daltrey hollering away and the Who trying to be heavy and all that stuff and old from 70 and 69, right? And so that's a funny parallel I think I would draw with that Blue Oyster Cult thing, because it's like, if that's your favorite kind of Blue Oyster Cult, well, guess what? They don't do that anywhere else. So you really don't like this band.
No, it's obvious. It's obvious. And you know, even when they play, and this also, even when they play other songs from that same album, it's like, and people are looking like clueless. Like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. The Agents of Fortune? I don't know. But, well, that's the album that it came from, right? So obviously, did you ever even buy that album? And if you did, was that the only song you listened to? Or did you just buy the single? Or did you not ever own a Blue Oyster Cult album? You only know what you heard on the radio.
Yeah.
Because I run into that a lot too, about people who just never bought albums. And the only songs they know by any bands are the ones that are played on the radio. Those are the people who sit there with their, you know, their hands under their knees during the show, looking around, going to the bathroom, going to the bar, during all these great other classic songs from these bands, but yet they only come to life when the hits are played. It's like, you know, I mean, I can go on and on with stories like this. I saw Styx once where they played all of Pieces of Eight and Grand Illusion, right? And literally, you know, all these people are all fired up at the beginning, you know, the show's starting. And yet the only songs that they had any reaction to were like Come Sail Away, Renegade, Blue Collar Man. That's it. And maybe the Grand Illusion, the title track. So, you know, meanwhile, they're playing Castle Walls and all these deep cuts that they never play. And I'm like, yes. And I'm looking around and people are like, I don't know this song. Like, how do you not know this song? It's like, but again, I think the general public only knows radio songs. They're not album collectors. They don't listen to records and deep cuts and all that kind of stuff. So maybe we're just the oddballs here. I don't know. You know, it's strange. It's very strange.
So bottom line is we've discovered three kinds of hits. There's the regular kind of hits. There's the hits where a band will name it's the title track, and then there's the hits that the fans over time vote, you know, soaking up the experience, the great songs that rise to the top because they're literally the best songs by the band. And those are the ones usually all over their live albums, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So did we accomplish anything here today? I don't know, but this was a fun discussion because I could talk about this kind of stuff all the time. we could probably in a couple of weeks do a part 2 of this if we wanted to and name 5 other bands. But I think we've kind of made our point here today is that, there are some of us who gravitate towards, we pick the songs that we like and we know all of the material. And so it has nothing to do with radio or MTV or any of that stuff. We like what we like, and that's it. And there's going to be other of us, and we'll see in the comments below, who gravitate towards those hits that were fed us because that's easy, right? It's like you turn the knob and turn the little radio on and like, oh yeah, there's that song. I like that song, but I never bought the album. I had no need to buy the album. That's the best song, right? So who knows? It'll be interesting to see what the comments are flooded with. So
I'll say one other thing that we didn't say, and I won't name the name, but we have a mutual friend who will say this about the hits, and it's kind of a sanctimonious comment, but those hits are hits for a reason.
Yeah,
that's it, right? So it's like, the collective unconscious has spoken. Those hits are hits. Literally, he would say to us, because they are the greatest songs, right?
Yeah. I'd argue if we go back in time to a lot of these bands and a lot of the hits, and it was me or you who made the decision not to release those as singles and pick other songs, I guarantee you those other songs would be hits as well. Because that's just the way it goes. Because there's no, to use a term that you say, there is no great swami out there that knows above all what the best songs are on an album. Someone just made a choice. Yeah, that's a catchy song. We're going to release that to radio. Doesn't mean there aren't other catchy songs. Doesn't mean that those other songs couldn't have been hits as well. They just weren't given the chance to be so.
And sometimes they are obvious, like Walk This Way off of Toys in the Attic, right?
Yeah. There are always going to be the obvious songs. Like, we talked about Black Dog before. Black Dog is an obvious song. It's heavy. It's kind of complicated. It's catchy. It's unique. There's always going to be those. But not, it's not in every case. The Boys Are Back in Town. That's a damn catchy song. But they have other catchy songs. Like you said, they have other catchy songs that are kind of similar to that nobody knows, that nobody ever bothered with. So.
And on that one on my list, when I was arguing why it's fairly down the list, I said, I went back and played it, and it's like I found myself being kind of irritated by those jazzy verse chords. The chorus is undeniable,
yeah,
but the verse is like, whatever. They've got better verses.
Right? They do. Yeah. They absolutely do. Yeah. Oh boy, we're going to keep going back with more points.
Yeah. I'll stop. I'm done.
I was just saying, I'm like, we can go on another half hour just, firing off here. Cause this conversation just has always driven me batty. So it's like, I'm very passionate about this. So anyway, folks, now that you've heard from us, let's hear from you in the comments below. Feel free to pick these 5 bands and let us know what your favorite songs are, your favorite 5. It'll be interesting to see kind of what the general consensus is. And, anyway, there we go. Martin, give us a brief update on Contrarians, podcast, books, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've got the Contrarians YouTube channel, and that's as I mentioned, the one with Jamie just went up, and we had a Yes, what the heck is a Big Generator Dark Horse album panel go up, and my latest History in 5 songs should be up today. That's just called Self-Titled. And martinpopoff.com for all the books. The Bowie is the big one that's in now. Big expensive, unfortunately. Really plush coffee table book, but the Bowie is in, and the Angel is in back in print.
Okay, cool. I'm hoping to get to the Bowie book real soon. I'm trying to finish up that Fates Warning biography. I'm like, I'm inundated with books right now. Yeah, it's just like I'm trying to get through all of them. So for folks watching, you'll get a review from me on the Bowie book hopefully fairly soon. I'm just trying to finish up the one and dive into that. And those I should be able to get through that fairly quickly. I just need to finish one and get to the other. So so coming up here on the channel, we've got the UK Connection coming up tomorrow, where God, what is our topic on the UK Connection tomorrow? Let's see, what do we got here? We're doing favorite and least favorite Toto albums. So that is happening tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And we've got ranking the albums on Sunday, Jefferson Starship. So that's what's coming up. And then, of course, we start the work week off with the Hudson Valley Squares on Monday. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please, if you haven't already, pick up your ticket for Sea Tranquility Fall Fest on October 1st at the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York. You'll get to hang out with Martin and myself and the folks from the Hudson Valley Squares and the folks from In the Prague Seat and Monsters Den and all sorts of other shows across the channel. Most of us will be there, and we got lots of good music. We got Pat Travers Band, Nectar, Vanilla Fudge, Sonus Umbra, Epic Tantrum. Andy Powell from Wishbone Ash will be there. Chris Caffrey from Sabotage and the Trans-Siberian Orchestra will be there. So it'll be a fun 12-hour day of talk and music, so don't miss it. And we'll hope to see you there. For Martin Popoff, I'm Pete Pardo. See you next Friday here at the Funhouse, everybody. Take care.